You this evening. I am Cleone Stapleton Simmonds, host of the legendary show, and I'm quite delighted. I trust and hope that everyone is having a wonderful Monday evening. And of course, I just wish to remind the general public that Legendary is on Fun Radio every first Monday of the month, and so it is the first Monday in June, and so I am here with you this evening. I wish to say a special good evening to all the good folks and residents here on the island of Nevis, as well as our friends and families there on the sister island of St. Kitts. I trust and hope that you are having a wonderful evening. I also wish to say a pleasant good evening to our friends, families, supporters, what have you there in the diaspora, as well as our friends and families who are tuned in regionally and who are listening to the legendary show this evening. I promise you a great show. Of course, last but certainly not least, I wish to say a special good evening to the good folks there in St. Thomas's Parish, my beloved constituency. I trust and hope that you all are having a wonderful Monday evening. Now, before we get into our show, we have a few housekeeping matters to take care of as usual, and so I will get right into that. I wish to extend happy birthday greetings to all those who are celebrating a birthday today, or perhaps you will be celebrating throughout the rest of the week. We extend happy birthday wishes to you, as well as those who are celebrating an anniversary. We also extend congratulations to you, and we trust and hope that you are having a wonderful time. On that same breath, I wish to express sympathy to all those families who perhaps are grieving or mourning the loss of a loved one during this difficult time. I trust and hope that you may find comfort in the bosom of God during this difficult time. Our thoughts and prayers are with the family of Miss Moreth. I know she was an employee of Bodies there in Charlestown, and so my thoughts and prayers goes out to her twin sisters, Joyan, there in Bat Village, and her other sister. So I just wish to say condolences to the entire family. I know it's a very, very difficult time, but our thoughts and prayers are with you. I also wish to say greetings and extend well wishes to all those persons who are perhaps hospitalized or who are not feeling so well, and they perhaps not in the best of health, but we want to encourage them and we want to ask them to kindly keep the faith, continue to pray, and continue to trust in God. So it's me alone this evening. We do not have a special guest, and this evening I will not be taking any phone calls. We're having an issues show, so we'll be dealing with some pertinent issues that have been touching us as a people here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and I would just like to start by just addressing an issue that has been drawn to my attention, and that is the issue concerning the closure of the office of the opposition. As many of you know, I am the elected representative for Nevis 5, and so I am a member of the opposition. Okay, and so I just wanted to just give a brief history and go into a bit of detail to explain the history of the office to the best of my knowledge and understanding, as well as my experience as it relates to the office of the opposition. So I ask you to be with me. I'm not taking any calls this evening. I am unable to really go through the comments as it's me alone in the studio, but nevertheless I would go through them sometime after the show, and if anything is worthy of clarification or explanation, I will certainly be in a position to deal with that at that particular point in time. Now, many of you perhaps who know me would have recalled that sometime back in 2019 I offered myself as a candidate to represent my former party, that is the Nevis Reformation Party, in the upcoming by-election. Now, the circumstances pertaining to the by-election was due to the fact that Honorable Mr. Joseph Parry, who was the area representative for that particular constituency, Nevis 5 or St. Thomas's Parish as some of you may know, he had that seat for a number of years, and he had indicated his intention to resign or retire, perhaps a more fitting word, from elective politics. And so he would have done so somewhat perhaps in the middle of the parliamentary term, because as you guys may know, and if you do not recall, I wish to remind you that there was a local election on Nevis in 2017, and the CCM, the Concern Movement, they won 4 seats, and then the NRP retained 1 seat. That was the St. Thomas's seat. And so because of his intention or desire to resign, that triggered really a by-election when he officially resigned on December 31st, 2019. Okay. Just to fast forward a little bit, I then contested the local elections or the by-elections. I was successful as a candidate for the NRP, and on I believe it was March 5th, 2020, I won the seat and became the area representative or the parliamentary representative for Nevis 5. Now, prior to my arrival into the parliamentary scene, Mr. Parry had an arrangement with the government, and that is under the leadership of, I believe it was then Premier Brantley, where certain courtesies were extended to Mr. Joseph Parry, as he was the lone parliamentarian on the opposition in the Nevis Island Assembly. And so, despite not being leader of the opposition, because of course the Constitution did not permit Mr. Parry to be appointed as leader of the opposition, simply because he did not command the support of at least one other person in accordance with section 52 of the Constitution of St. Christopher and Nevis. 52 or 58? Stand to be corrected. I think it's 58. And so therefore, because of that particular situation, of course, the government then, despite the requirement under the Constitution, they nevertheless recognized that there was a member of the opposition, and they saw it fit at that particular time to offer certain resources in the form of making an office for the opposition accessible to Mr. Parry. And so that took place from, I believe, I don't know the precise date, but I believe from at least from 2018, because I believe the elections were held in December 2017. Okay, so there was an office for the opposition that was provided, fully funded by the government, and I wish to state, as I have done so on different mediums, on different forums, that at all material times the office of the opposition should be, ought to be, and it really is the government's office. Okay, if you are a member of the opposition, you're part of the Nevis Island Assembly, and so therefore there are certain courtesies that can be extended to you if you are functioning in that particular capacity. Let me just state again, for record purposes, Mr. Parry at that time was not the leader of the opposition, because there could not have been a leader of the opposition. And I think that, you know, that was understood by himself and perhaps by other persons in the island of Nevis, as well as in the federation, you know, those who are politically inclined and even those who are not so politically inclined. Now, after, I believe that the office of the opposition at that particular time, it was situated at Nelson Springs, in the building that hosted the NRP headquarters. And so to the best of my knowledge, information and belief, I believe 2 office spaces were made available for the office of the opposition. One office space obviously for Mr. Parry, and then the other for his administrative assistant or his clerk, and at that time I believe that person was Mr. Renaldon Bartlett. Now, I'm not going to go into specific details in terms of the correspondences between that I am aware of, and more so those specifically between myself and the government at that particular time. However, I will try my best to explain certain situations just so that everybody can have a thorough understanding as to what actually took place, because there seem to be some persons out there who are trying to damage or malign my character and integrity as it relates to the office of the opposition, and making certain accusations pertaining to myself as well as the government, which I feel is very unfortunate that these things have to, that people have to particularly stoop to that level. And so I just want to take my time. I want to clear the air, and I want persons out there, those near, those far, those here, residing here locally on the island of Nevis or in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and those abroad. I just want everybody to take some time out to listen and to understand what really transpired. Now, the arrangement with Mr. Parry, to the best of my information, knowledge and belief, and I keep saying that because I do not have all of the facts. At that time I was not a member of the opposition back in 2018, but so I can only speak as to what I became aware since I started functioning in the position. And so at that particular time, the arrangement with with Mr. Parry, the lone member of the opposition at that time, was that the government provided the office space, and they also provided certain funds, an allotment of funds for the office of the opposition. I was duly informed and verily believe that at that time the amount was, I believe it was $5,800 that was provided to Mr. Parry through an account that was made available for the leader of the opposition. Okay, and that sum was paid, I believe it was paid on a monthly basis, of course, for purposes of rent as well as bills and other expenses. Now, I wish to remind you and to reiterate that I stated at that time there wasn't an actual building that was rented. It was just merely two office spaces, and the building was really shared for the NRP party as well as the office of the opposition, where I believe certain expenses were split and shared between that office as well as the party. Okay, I stand to be corrected if that was not the case, but of course that is my understanding, and I believe that is what the evidence that I have reviewed, that is what it indicated. Now, I wish to fast forward a bit and speak now to my experience as it relates to the office of the opposition. Now, I would have contested the election and won it on the by-election, that is on March 5th, 2020. Because of an issue between the then landlord at that time for the building at Nelson Spring and the government, I must say that the lease arrangement for the office of the opposition to be hosted at the building at Nelson Spring, that was subsequently terminated by the landlord after Mr. Parry's departure from office. Okay, so that would have taken place, I believe it was around January, sometime in January 2020. Of course, Mr. Parry would have left office in the 31st of December 2019. because of that particular situation, the office of the opposition ceased to exist in the headquarters, the NRP headquarters at Nelson Spring, because of course the lease was somewhat not renewed, or it was terminated. Now, when I won the by-election, there was a bit of a challenge in the sense that because of the lease that previously existed, because that was terminated, then that simply means that a new arrangement had to be made between myself and the government as it relates to the office of the opposition. And I believe that sometime in August, it was August 2020, that the Honorable Premier wrote to me, basically advising me that the courtesies that were extended to Mr. Parry as a lone parliamentarian on the opposition bench, that those same courtesies will be extended to myself as member of the opposition. Now, I want you to note the date. I stated earlier that I contested and won the by-election on March 5th, 2020, and it was not until sometime in August, I believe, that I received correspondences just basically outlining, the arrangement for the office of the opposition. I recall that the correspondence stated clearly that space was provided at the Rams complex. I believe that's what it stated, for the office of the opposition. I recall sometime in September, I had a discussion during one of my meetings with the Honorable Premier, and I, basically negotiated for an office space to be provided closer in the vicinity of Main Street, Charlestown, because I was of the view that having an office at Rams Complex would have proven to be a bit challenging for me, because of course, as you all know, I have my law office is situated on Government Road in Charlestown, and so to have to travel really back and forth between two offices, I thought that would have posed some challenges. So I did negotiate for the office to be in the heart of Charlestown. Of course, the Honorable Premier, Mark Brantley, at that time, we were brainstorming, and he made the suggestion that the office should be, perhaps, if I would consider for the office to be at, I believe it was the Springate building, Ted Hobson building, and I then negotiated for an office space in Colin Paris building, just upstairs my law office, for several reasons which I do not wish to really state on live on air, but obviously I was trying my best to ensure that the office was accessible, that it was reachable, and that it was generally easier for myself to have the office in that particular area, as well as I was mindful that Mr. Paris was a very avid supporter of the Nevis Reformation Party at that time, and so I think if I could really give him some business within that particular complex, that really was the spirit behind that particular decision. Of course, everything in politics is negotiation. I mean, you can have ideas, you make requests, and you try to bargain for the best deal possible, and so that turned out to be successful. Of course, at that particular time, now we are now fast forwarding now to October, by the time we finish all of the negotiations, and that's October 2020. The office at that particular time was not fitting to really suit an office of the opposition, and so some remedial work had to be done in order to get the office ready. I recall I had discussions with Parliament Secretary Mr. Dorr, and we looked at it, and then we decided that the government really ought to extend make the office more accommodating, and so there were some internal alterations that was done in order to make the office more suitable and more accessible and comfortable. I believe I had the assistance of several persons. I believe Banky, those of you know Mr. King very well, Banky King, and he came in and he really assisted in laying out the office and putting in a separate office for the member of the opposition, as well as an common area for guests, as well as an area for the secretary. And so all of that was done at the expense of the government. There were, to the best of my knowledge, information, and believe there were no issues. The transaction and the entire process really went through very smoothly. The office became functional, I believe it was in late November 2020, because that's when all of the remedial work and the alterations and everything that was really completed, and so the office became functional. Of course, the government provided the furniture for the office, as well as other resources. They paid for a secretary, and who at that time was Mr. Bartlett, seeing that he was already the administrative assistant or secretary, so to speak, in our local terms. For Mr. Parry, he was able to continue his tenure at that particular point in time, and so the government extended their courtesies, to which I am extremely grateful. And I continue to be extremely grateful, because I was mindful that they didn't necessarily have to. And I want to explain briefly why I say that, because many of you would recall that back in 2013, the Nevis Reformation Party contested the local election, and they were successful in winning 2 of the 5 seats, and so the CCM was in government at that particular time. And even though at that time the NRP was in a position, or they qualified, so to speak, to have a leader of the opposition appointed, no courtesies were extended to the opposition party to have an office. So I don't know what was the reason for that, but it has never been done in the history of politics in Nevis, at least until 2017, under the leadership and guidance of Premier Brantley. And that is the reason why I said it's not automatic, it is not a must. Of course, the government of the day, they get to decide on what resources or what department heads they would like to extend budgetary support to, and that is something that is for the government, and so it is always somewhat discretionary. I wish to reiterate at this point that even during the period that the Nevis Reformation Party was in government, from 2006 to I believe 2013, consecutively, that there was no provision made for an office of the opposition. And so that is why I want people to understand that it is not an absolute right, it is not something that is perhaps automatic. It is indeed at the discretion of the government, and we all understand this arrangement to be something of good governance, as well as parliamentary courtesy, really. Okay, so I just hope people understand that particular point. Nevertheless, the office continued to function as an office would. The government at that particular time, the arrangement that they had with myself as the member for the opposition, not necessarily the leader, but member. But in practice, you're the only person there, and so it's you are basically managing the office just like any other office, government officer, government head, any other department of government. If you're the only person there, then naturally you will take on management or leadership responsibilities. I think that goes without saying, and everyone should be able to understand that. So at that particular time, the agreement between myself, and I'm looking at a correspondence here that is dated December 1st, 2020, and the subject matter is funding for the office of the opposition. So I just want everybody to know and to understand that it was at this particular time that the office of the opposition really started to operate and to function as an office serving the public. And so the arrangement at that time really was the government would pay the rent directly to the landlord, and they would provide funding, a monthly stipend for utility bills, for the payment of a cleaner, and the government as well paid the secretary or the assistant clerk, or whatever you want to call that particular person, the office assistant. They paid them directly as a member of the government or a civil servant. Of course, that person would be in the capacity of a non-established worker. Okay, so I just want to make those things clear. And the agreement that we came to, of course, was the government provided, and I believe I am at liberty in the public interest to disclose this amount, $3,600 per month for the office of the opposition, $1,800 for the rent, as well as $1,800 to pay utilities, as well as to pay the cleaner. And so that was the extent of the funding that was provided for the office of the opposition. Of course, the utility bills included, of course, electricity, Wi-Fi, telephone, and all of those things. Now, I am saying all of this to say, because it has been reported on various social media platforms as well as other radio programs, that there seem to be some sort of misunderstanding. I don't know whether it is inadvertent or whether it is with the intention to cause malicious damage, but I have heard on several programs where several hosts of certain shows have stated that funding in the amount of $16,000 was provided to myself as member of the opposition. I wish to say that that is not true. I wish to dispel those rumors and to ask those persons who are creating mischief, because it seems like that is all some people are capable of doing in this world: create mischief for other people, try to drag people's name and dirty people's name and malign people. I wish to say that those rumors are absolutely false. Those allegations is not factual, and there has been no such arrangement between, as far as I am aware, between myself as the lone member of the opposition at that time and the government, where any sum to the extent of $15,000 or $16,000 was paid in any account for the benefit of the member of the opposition. So I wish to just make that very, very clear and crystal clear. Okay, I will get back to that point in a minute. So I just want those of you who are paying attention to really understand. If you followed what I said, Mr. Parry, he at that particular point in time, he had access to funding in the region of $5,800. For myself, it was $3,600. Some of you may ask, well, why was there such a disparity? I think the difference was really in the rent. The office, when it was at the NRP headquarters or the building at Nelson Spring, it was significantly higher than the office in Charleston. So I believe that was the disparity. One of the things that I negotiated and I made clear that I wanted to happen was the arrangement was that the landlord should be paid directly. I think that was important because I did not want the onus of any rental agreement between the NIA and the landlord. I did not want that burden to fall upon myself, and so I made it clear that the arrangement really ought to be directly between the government and the landlord. The reason for doing so is because I was fully aware that one of the challenges that the Office of the Opposition had in the past was that the arrangement was made directly between the NIA and Mr. Parry, who will then, I suppose, made the funds available to pay the rent. Okay, I did not want that to be on me. I wanted the process to be as transparent as possible without any involvement of myself, without any sort of awkwardness, for lack of a better word. I just did not want the responsibility. Okay, I see no reason why, if the government is renting a building from the landlord, why they cannot enter into contractual arrangements directly with the landlord. And I felt that was the best way possible. That is what I negotiated, and that is what was accepted, and that was the arrangement at all material times until the end of April this year. April 30th, I believe, was the last date for the Office of the Opposition to function. Okay, so I hope that is clear to everyone. Now, I wish to say that sometime during the tenure, between the period of 2021 to 2023, Mr. Bartlett would have indicated that his intention to resign from the post of office assistant, and he wanted to move on. And so the government then made arrangement for another person to be appointed as the office assistant for the Office of the Opposition. Of course, again, I wish to reiterate, there were no issues, there were no problem. It was just mere writing correspondences between all of the stakeholders, and that transition went through very, very smoothly. Okay, now I am saying all of this to say that, as far as I am aware, as far as I can tell, as far as the documentation before me, and I have all of the correspondences dated, fully outlining what took place, that the transition, it was not very smooth initially, but eventually we got there. The office was up and running by December 2020, and everything took place as it ought to. Okay, utility bills were paid by the secretary. They were paid, as far as I am aware, on time. There were no issues, no complaints from the landlord. The funds that were made available, I understood that they were for the maintenance of the Office of the Opposition. Okay, the office has nothing to do with the member or myself in my personal capacity. I have an office in the same building, my law office, which I am responsible for, and so the office really was maintained and funded. That is the Office of the Opposition, not my law office, was maintained by the NIA. And I believe that anybody who wants to check records, I mean, these are public records. If you want the information, you can get the information, because I have always and will continue to uphold my integrity, and any position that I am given, whether it be in the form of through my representation as a parliamentary representative, I have always acted in good faith and with utmost integrity. So I have absolutely nothing to hide. There's nothing shady about me. There's no one out there, even though they tried to stain my name and accuse me of all types of evil and fraudulent activities. It really cannot stand, because again, like I said, evidence would always stand up. Now, the reason why I am taking some time out to discuss this particular matter, there seems to be some persons who really do not understand how government works. They do not understand how the office of the opposition function, and because of their lack of understanding, they are out there creating a lot of mischief, causing a lot of anxiety, and causing people to really spread unnecessary rumors, you know, about myself and the office of the opposition, and to some extent the government. I recall a few Wednesdays ago, the Honorable Premier stated on his show that an allegation was made pertaining to myself, where the allegation was made accusing the government of providing an office for the Honorable Cleone Stapleton Simmonds and providing funding for the other member of the opposition, that is myself. I wish to again, for those persons who cannot understand, seem not to understand, or do not want to take the time out to understand, and who are only interested in damaging or assassinating my character and my integrity, I wish to use this forum to state that I, Cleone Tara Stapleton Simmonds, I have never in the history of my political career or otherwise received any funding in my personal capacity from the NIA. The NIA pays me a salary, I believe, as they pay all other elected members of parliament a salary, as well as a constituency allowance. Okay, if the public is interested in knowing what that figure is, I believe that they can do their checks and the information would be made available. So I just wish to say that at no point in time have the government ever provided any funding to Cleone Tara Stapleton Simmonds in her personal capacity through the office of the opposition. Those rumors are false, those allegations are false, and I wish to ask all those persons who are out there asserting such to cease and desist and refrain from making such statements. Some of them have been made already, and already, as you know, I am, you know who I am, and so, you know, the necessary course of action will be taken in order to deal with those allegations, which I believe the intent behind them was really to seek to malign my character and to slander my name, and so those things will be dealt with in due course. All I wish to say for the general public, especially my constituents there in St. Thomas's Parish, to understand that the government has never, under any circumstances, as far as I am aware, to the best of my knowledge, information, and belief, provided any sort of funding to myself as it relates to the office of the opposition. They have indeed provided funding for the office, and it is an office. I mean, for those of you who understand how government works, you know, there's an office, you have a monthly budget, of course you have budgetary allotments within the budget. Okay, so I saw correspondence, I had sight of it recently, where the allegation was made that to the Honorable Premier that the government has been providing assistance to myself, funding that is, to myself, as it relates to the office of the opposition and not to the other elected member of the opposition. I really do not know what that allegation is about, but what I wish to tell the general public is that that allegation is false. And if you were to think of it from a logical perspective, there is no way that any government will seek to provide any funding to assist any member of the opposition. It really doesn't make sense. Okay, if you think about it for a minute, for from a logical standpoint, from a practical standpoint, why would any government seek to provide funding to any member of the opposition? What any individual member of the opposition? The government provides funding for the office of the opposition, for the office to function, for you to have a space, for you to have certain resources, for you to carry out your mandate. At all material times, I understood that the office was the office for the entire opposition, not just a particular party, but elected members of the opposition. And I believe the office was, at that time when it was available, it's no longer available now because the government made the decision that they wish to close the office because of certain correspondences, and obviously because of the situation from the relating to the impasse, as well as my suspension from my former party. So the government took that decision. Of course, that is well within their right to do so, because as I maintain, these courtesies were extended as mere courtesy, and I do believe and I understood that I, as a member of the opposition, did not have an absolute right nor entitlement. And so I take that for what it is. At the end of the day, it is what it is, and you have to take things as they are. Okay, I am not one to fight battles that are not really worth fighting. I have no control over that, and so that is a matter really for the government. So just to wrap up on that particular point, I just want the general public to understand that at all material times during my tenure, from roughly about December 2020 to August 30th of April 2023, the office of the opposition was always accessible and available to the general public, to any member of the opposition. If they did have an interest in really, or a desire in really accessing the office, it was accessible. Okay, I cannot be held responsible if something is made accessible and persons do not take advantage of that access. That really has nothing to do with me. I don't think that it should have anything to do with the government. All I can say is that the office and resources for it, that they were made available and accessible, and to the best of my knowledge, information, and belief, I believe that I tried my best to make good use of that office when it was accessible and available to myself. I cannot be held responsible nor accountable for those who did not seek that opportunity. I wish to also state further that from my experience in being perhaps the caretaker of the office when I was the lone parliamentarian for the former party, I cannot recall members of that same party really using the office. The office was basically, it was there. Members of the general public did use the office to make appointment with myself. I believe that I did have one or two meetings with certain dignitaries using that office space. I do recall on one occasion where the then leader, before she was a member of parliament, that she did use the office along with myself to host one meeting, and that is to the best of my knowledge, information, and belief. I wish to also inform the general public that part of the disciplinary or penal actions taken against me, one of the allegations or the complaints was that I caused the former opposition party, of which I was a former member, to lose access to funds. And I want people to understand what I am saying, so I'm going to repeat it. I was accused, or a complaint was made against me by a disciplinary committee hearing, stating that I caused the former party, my former party, the Nevis Reformation Party, to lose funding from the office of the opposition because I failed to support the party leader as leader of the opposition. Now, for those of you who are listening, for those of you who are sufficiently competent and sensible, I, for the life of me, cannot understand how I, Cleone Stapleton Simmonds, can, in my capacity as an elected member and exercising the discretion afforded to me under the Constitution of St. Kitts and Nevis, how I could have prevented the office of the opposition from being used to provide funding or financial assistance to a political party. I do not know under what circumstances would any government seek to provide any type of funding for a political party, especially one on the opposition side. I find it to be not only outrageous but absolutely absurd. And so I just want people to understand that, you know, this is the type of issues that I in my capacity of parliamentary representative for Nevis 5, these are the kind of issues that I am confronted with, where I have been punished, penalized for not allowing, I don't know how and in what circumstances, but for not allowing the government resources or the public resources, not necessarily government resources, I will stand to be corrected, the public resources to be extended to be used by a political party. And this was one of the issues, or one of the challenges, and despite my best effort to explain to members of my former party that the government resources, the public purse, the resources of the public purse cannot under any circumstances and should not be used to fulfill any particular party political agenda. Okay, I was not in favor in that. I am still not in favor in it, and I never indulged nor engaged nor permitted myself to participate in such activities. I mean, the records are clear, the evidence is there, and so I just want all of those persons who are perhaps confused in their mind and who think that it is perhaps just and it is right and it is honorable for any political party to use the funds that are made available to it for the purpose of an office of the opposition, which should be used to carry out the public function, for those funds to be used to fund a political party. I wish to say that I do not see how that could be becoming. I do not feel that it is becoming. I have not supported it, and I also have not engaged in it. Yet I am being penalized. That is one of the allegations that was made against me. So you can see for yourself, you know, when people are confused about certain things, when they simply do not understand, when their intentions as it relates to representation, when it is not pure, when it is not true, when people do not commit themselves to really performing at the standard that is required, the good governance standard, where you can separate an office of the opposition, an office that is provided and funded by the government for a particular use, when you can separate that from party politics, okay, party objectives or party agendas. It is very important to do so. So I cannot sit here and say what was the practice in the past, because I do not know. I can only assume from certain conducts, from certain statements that were made, and now with the allegation in writing, a complaint that is made against me for not doing exactly what I think is wrong and exactly what I think is unbecoming, that there perhaps was a practice in the past where the funding from the office of the opposition was perhaps used. I don't know. I can only say that perhaps it may have happened to support a political party. I did not engage in that, and as such I was penalized for not doing so. Now I will let you, the general public, really be the judge and the jury of that, whether you felt my actions in those circumstances, whether they were appropriate. I believe they were, because at the end of the day, that is not something that I understood with my arrangement with the government and with the courtesies that were afforded to me. I understood that that was not permitted. Matter of fact, in my first meeting with the Honorable Premier, that was one of the complaints, one of the things that he indicated, that the government cannot provide resources to fund any political party. I believe that went without saying. So I hope that for the benefit of my supporters, for the benefit of my constituents, for the benefit of those persons in the general public who really just didn't understand what transpired, I hope that I have shed some light on this particular issue, and that people now understand the whole reason, they understand that the allegations made against me, that they were at all material times false, and people now have a better understanding that the government, the office of the opposition, which happens to be, you know, a part of the NIA and a part of the Nevis Island Assembly, that it at all material times, under my guidance and my leadership, that it was separate and apart from the political party. Okay, now, having touched on that, I just wish to touch briefly, and I'm very mindful of the time, on another issue, and that really has to do with the issue of health. And before I go into making any constructive criticism, I wish to say that I am aware that a particular service was added now and is available at the Alexandra Hospital, and that is for mammogram, for screening for breast cancer and things of that sort, or any irregularities as it relates to a woman's breast. And I believe that service was made available in the second week in May. And so I just want to encourage women in particular, those of you who are age 40 and over, to make use of that particular service. I believe the Premier, in his press conference, both recent and previously, he stated that the screening would be, or the use of the service will be free, at least for the rest of the year, until the 31st of December 2023, and so you don't have to pay for it. And so I want to take this opportunity to encourage everyone. Yes, we are aware that we do not have the best healthcare system in the world, but at least we must be grateful that we also do not have the worst either, and there are certain services that are made available to the general public, and especially for us women. And I want to use this forum to encourage persons to make use of this service. It is free. All you have to do is to go to the Alexandra Hospital and to make an appointment, and you can have your free breast screening. And so I want to encourage everyone to go out and to use the service. Make sure that you follow up with your, of course, on the advice of your physician. I'm not a physician, so of course on the advice of your physician or your doctor, make sure that you go and you get your screening done. Those of us who are 40 and above, it is very important, because part of the initiative that I see the government really is pushing is to ensure that they can have early detection of any type of cancer, particularly breast cancer. So I just want to encourage women of age to go to the hospital, use the service, ensure that you engage, speak to your physician. You can speak to your community nurses. You can have your examination done, by your doctor. You can do it yourself, or you can even have it done at the respective health centers. So I just want to encourage us. We are responsible for our health, and when certain things are made available, putting all politics and all, other impartialities aside, all other discourse, I believe that we as citizens of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, that we have to be responsible for our health, and I want to just encourage persons to go out there and to do exactly that. Okay, females, go and get your screening done. Of course, I cannot touch on health without making mention of the fact that to date, the hospital wing, the new hospital wing, it has not been completed as yet. We are still awaiting word on that. The Premier recently alluded to the fact that there has been again some delay, and I think at this point, really, because of the funds that has been exhausted on that particular hospital wing, and the fact that we are still waiting a fully functioning or completed hospital wing, I believe that there is now perhaps need for consultation with the general public, to just let people know directly, not necessarily through a press conference, but more so through community outreach, to more community consultations or public consultations, so that people can ask questions. And of course, as taxpayers, and I wish to remind everyone that property tax is due, so you have to pay your corporate tax, property tax, whatever have you. So as taxpayers, I believe that we do have a right to demand certain answers and to ask certain questions of the government. So I think the time has come for the government now to be honest, to be open, and to be frank with the general public, because what is happening really doesn't make sense. Of course, we have been hearing, a number of things back in the budget debate in February. There was a disparity as to the amounts that has been spent on that particular hospital wing. I mean, at this point, I think the majority of the public has already concluded that there has been some sort of wastage of government funds, and I think the time has come for the government really to be honest and to be open and to be frank with the general public, and to have some sort of consultation to let us know what really is the problem, because clearly there must be a problem. Okay, we have been given a number of excuses, a number of reasons. There were some issues with the design, issues with the budget, issues with the interior design. We are now told that is being worked on. Now we understand that there has been a halt, and so I think the time has just come. It's too much confusion to just be honest, open and frank with the members of the general public, and just state really what is the issue, what was the issue from inception, and why this particular project is beyond the due date and is taking so long. Okay, nothing beats honesty, nothing beats openness, nothing beats being frank, and I think the general public, the taxpayers, really deserve that. Okay, so that is my 2 cents, the extent of my discussion here with you this evening. It was indeed a pleasure to be here with you on this wonderful Monday night. I know that we have had several activities in the entertainment arena, or what I like to call as the orange economy, recently, and I know many of you would have seen me partaking in some of those activities and some of those functions. I had the opportunity to attend Breaking Dawn for the first time over in St. Kitts at the Carambola Hotel, and I really did enjoy my time there. I had wonderful fun, and I really do appreciate those persons who were able to join in my company, who allowed me to join and to have some fun and some downtime with them. I also on Saturday June 3rd, I was able to attend Tropics, and I had a good time, I must say. I was quite amazed by the number of persons and young people who came out and who had some good clean fun. And so this is all a part of really the entertainment part of growing the orange economy, and we want to just remember and remind the general public that these events, they really have a lasting impact on our economy, because they do provide jobs for small businesses, hairdressers, nail technicians, persons in the respective retail outlets, and so we should encourage them. I'm looking forward to the music festival there in St. Kitts, the St. Kitts Music Festival that is coming up from the 22nd to the 24th of June, and I just want to encourage those who can, if you like to be entertained and you're looking forward to music festival, I just wish to encourage you to engage perhaps sometime during the course of the month. We may have a special legendary show with the intention to give away some music festival tickets to some persons who are deserving and who qualify. So I will let you know a bit more about that as the time draws nearer, as we get closer to the time. So I just want to thank everyone for coming out and for participating. If you were able to leave your comments, as I said, I will review them later, and those that are worthy of a response, I would surely respond to them. So thank you so much. We are now on the hour of 9 o'clock. I spoke for an entire hour without a break. And so I just want to thank you guys, and I want to encourage you to tune in to Legendary same time in July, the first Monday in July. That is if we do not have our special giveaway show first. So thank you so much. Have a pleasant good evening, and I will see you next time.